Welcome, friend. Tonight, I'm inviting you into someone else's life for a little while. A life that smells like hot metal and singed fabric, that sounds like clattering sewing machines and languages layered over each other. If you're listening in bed, getting cozy, I'm glad you're here. I'd love to know where you're listening from and what time it is where you are. You can tell me in the comments if you'd like. It always amazes me that a story from more than 100 years ago can reach you wherever you are in the world. If calm, slow storytelling about real women's lives helps you drift off, you're welcome to subscribe to Girly Tales so you don't miss the next journey. We'll move gently through different decades, different cities, always together, always softly. Tonight's story is not a fairy tale. You're about to wake up as a young woman in New York City in 1911. You're maybe 16, maybe 18. Your name might be Rosa, or Sophia, or Chava, or Anna. You share a narrow bed with a sister or a cousin. Your hair smells faintly of coal smoke and cooking onions, and the only part of the city you truly know is the path between your crowded tenement and the factory floor. To later generations, your life will be reduced to a single phrase: the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire. A headline, a tragedy, a piece of labor history. But before the newspapers and the photographs and the reforms, it is simply your Saturday morning. One more morning you wake up tired and go to work. Have you ever wondered what it actually felt like to be one of those girls? Not only in the moment of disaster, but in the long months and years leading up to it. To cross the ocean with everything you own in one small trunk. To crowd into a factory where the air is thick with lint, to sew the same sleeve over and over for 12 hours because each finished shirtwaist means a few more coins toward your family's rent. Tonight, we're going to slip quietly into that life. We'll walk the narrow streets of the Lower East Side before sunrise, climb the worn stairs to the 8th floor of the Osh building, and listen to the way the other girls laugh, gossip, and dream in the few minutes they're allowed to rest. This isn't a movie set. This was reality for thousands of young immigrant women in 1911 New York City. And the system they worked inside, low wages, locked doors, endless hours, wasn't an accident. It was built that way on purpose. By the end of the story, you'll understand not just what happened on that terrible March afternoon, but how ordinary girls like you were caught inside a machine that valued shirtwaists more than their lives. But for now, let's start gently, in the dark, just before dawn. You're still half asleep when you hear your sister whisper your name.
"Wake up," she murmurs. "Rosa, it's time." You don't open your eyes yet. You feel for the edge of the blanket, scratchy but warm, and pull it tighter over your shoulders. The room is cold in that particular way New York is cold in March. Not romantic snowy cold, but damp cold. The kind that curls under the door and hides in your bones. You're on the inside of the bed, against the wall. Your little sister, Lucia, is pressed against your back. On a chair pulled up beside the mattress, your cousin Sarah is curled like a cat, knees tucked to her chest. There are 4 of you in this room, and it is the bigger of the 2. Your mother is already up. You hear the click of the stove, the small sigh as gas catches flame, a gentle clatter of tin cups. "Up, girls," she says, not unkindly. The day will not wait for you. You roll onto your back and stare at the cracked ceiling. Someone upstairs has drawn a tiny picture in the plaster near the corner, a boat with a crooked mast. You found it months ago and claimed it in your mind as the ship that carried you to America. For a moment, you let yourself drift. You remember the dark belly of the steerage deck, the air thick with sickness and salt. You remember standing at the rail, eyes streaming from the wind, as someone near you shouted and pointed, and there it was, the Statue of Liberty, green and distant, and your mother clutching your hand so tightly it hurt. "Come," she says now, gently tapping your ankle through the blanket. "We will be late." You sit up. The room tilts a little with sleep. You swing your feet to the floor, feel the cold boards under your toes. The tenement around you is waking up. In the hallway outside, a baby is crying. Somewhere a man is coughing, deep and wet. A radio you share with 3 other families is not quite a radio. It's a neighbor's cheap gramophone. And someone puts the crank to it now, and faint, scratchy music drifts through the walls. You dress quickly in the half-dark. The blouse you pull over your head is not new, but it is clean, your mother's careful washing softening the cotton. Your skirt is dark wool, shiny at the seams from wear. It reaches almost to your ankles, the hem brushed with dust from long walks to the factory. You twist your hair into a knot at the nape of your neck, fingers quick from practice. Loose hair catches in machines. You learned that lesson from another girl's scream. At the little table there is coffee, weak and pale, mixed more with milk than beans. There is bread, sliced thin and toasted on the stove, rubbed with a clove of garlic and brushed with a little olive oil your mother saves for special. "Eat," she says. "You cannot sew on an empty stomach." Lucia grumbles, still half asleep, and drops her head on the table. "Maybe I don't sew today. Maybe I run away with an artist and live in a big house on Fifth Avenue." Your mother lets out a small snort. Artists don't live on Fifth Avenue, and men with big houses do not marry girls who talk back to their mothers. You smile, tearing your bread into small pieces. You don't say it out loud, but you also carry tiny dreams. Not of artists exactly, but of dresses you've seen in shop windows uptown, layers of lace and silk, shirtwaists with delicate pin tucks, hats blooming with feathers. You see women in those clothes walking briskly along Broadway, gloves buttoned tight, cheeks flushed not from dust but from winter air. Sometimes you imagine yourself stepping into one of those dresses like stepping into a new life. But dresses like that cost more than you will make in 6 months. So instead, you sew them for other girls. You kiss your mother's cheek. It is cool and smells faintly of soap. "Be careful," she says, like she does every morning. "If the foreman yells, duck your head and work faster. Don't argue. They can always find another pair of hands." "I know," you whisper. You and Lucia pull on your coats, thin wool that doesn't quite keep out the wind, and step into the hallway. The tenement staircase smells of cabbage and coal smoke, and too many people. Your hand glides along the worn wooden banister. You've walked these stairs so many times you could do it with your eyes closed. On the street, the city is a mixture of gray and gold. The sky above the tall, tight buildings is pale, almost white, but the early sun slips down between them in narrow beams, catching on shop signs in Yiddish and Italian, on push carts loaded with onions and potatoes,
on rows of shirts hanging from lines like flags. It is Saturday, but for you, it is a workday like any other. The Sabbath means rest for some, prayers and candles, and a slow day at home. For you, it means the factory will be even busier, rushing orders before Sunday. You tuck your chin into your scarf and start walking. You are not alone. From every doorway, girls like you spill into the street, braids pinned up, skirts swinging, lunch tins banging against their knees. Some walk in pairs, some in small clusters. Even half asleep, they find each other, gravitating like birds into a loose, shifting flock. You see your friend Esther hurrying toward you, cheeks red from the cold, her hat slightly crooked. "Rosa," she calls, "wait!" You slow until she catches up. She lives only 2 streets away, in a tenement that leans a little to one side, like an old man. Her family speaks Yiddish, yours speaks Italian, but work has its own language, and you've learned enough words of each other's to stitch your stories together. "You look tired," she says now, linking her arm through yours. Lucia laughs softly. She was dreaming about some boy. You roll your eyes. "I was not dreaming about a boy. I was dreaming about not having to sit hunched over a machine for 12 hours, if you can imagine such a thing." Esther smiles, but there is a shadow behind it. Her hands, peeking out from her frayed gloves, are covered in tiny cuts from fabric and scissors. You know that when she wakes in the night, sometimes her fingers twitch as if still guiding cloth under a sewing needle. The 3 of you walk west, away from the river, deeper into Manhattan. As you move, the city changes around you. The crowded stalls and street hawkers fade into slightly wider streets with taller buildings. The smell of fish and coal gives way to the cleaner, sharper scent of office paper and polished wood. You pass men in bowler hats and women in tailored coats who barely glance at you. To them, you are part of the background, little factory girls, necessary but invisible. You turn onto Washington Place, and there it is, the Ash Building. 10 stories of brick and stone, standing a little prouder than its neighbors. Its windows reflect the pale morning, and if you didn't know better, you might think it looks almost grand. You know better.
From the street, the Ash Building is just another blocky piece of the city. Inside, it is a world stacked on top of itself. The lower floors hold offices, respectable enough. The top 3, floors 8, 9, and 10, belong to the Triangle Waste Company. There is a single main entrance, a doorway that funnels hundreds of workers into a narrow hall. Today, like every morning, a man stands just inside it, heavy mustache, hat pulled low. His eyes flick over you as you pass, counting bodies like coins. "Move along," he says. You and Lucia join the queue for the elevator. It rattles and groans, carrying 12 girls at a time up to the 8th floor. Sometimes, when it's too slow, you take the stairs instead. Narrow, echoing, spiraling up through the building like a stone throat. Today, you and your friends squeeze into the elevator, shoulders pressed together, lunch pails clinking softly. The operator, a tired-looking man in a cap, shuts the gate with a metallic scrape and pulls the lever. The elevator shudders, then rises. For a moment, you watch the floors slide past, the second, the third.
a glimpse of a corridor, a frosted glass door with some lawyer's name painted in black letters on it. Then the doors jerk open again, and you're on the 8th floor. Heat wraps around you like a blanket. Even this early, the factory is warm, crowded with bodies and machines. Rows of gas jets flicker along the ceiling, and air carries the smells you know so well. Hot oil, pressed cotton, sweat, the faint metallic tang of scissors. The roar is constant. Hundreds of sewing machines clatter in near unison, like 1,000 pairs of metallic teeth chattering at once. Over it all, someone yells in English, and someone else answers in Italian, and a third voice calls out in Yiddish. And somehow, in the noise, orders are given and followed, pieces cut and stitched, lives risked stitch by stitch. You find your machine. It is like all the others, a long metal arm, a needle that moves so fast it's almost a blur, a treadle that pumps under your foot like a second heartbeat. Your station is near a window, which means a little more light and the faint illusion of air. The glass is streaked with city grime, but if you squint, you can see a narrow sliver of Washington Square Park where trees are still bare from winter. You hang your coat on a peg, tuck your lunch pail beneath your stool, and sit. The chair creaks under your weight. Esther takes her place 2 machines away. Lucia is farther down the row near the cutting tables, where long bolts of cloth are unrolled and sliced into neat patterns. A bell rings. The foreman, Mr. Bernstein, walks between the rows like a captain inspecting a ship. His eyes are sharp, but not cruel. Of the men in the factory, he is one of the kinder ones, though kindness doesn't count for much when he has quotas to meet. "All right, girls," he calls, "we must finish the order for Wanamakers today. No dawdling." You place your foot on the treadle and begin to sew. You sew shirtwaists. To women who buy them uptown, they are light, fashionable blouses worn with skirts and belts. They represent modernity, freedom from heavy corsets, a step toward the new woman. To you, they are piecework. Each part of the shirtwaist is money. Sleeves, cuffs, collar, front placket, back. For every piece you sew correctly, you earn a fraction of a cent. You know the prices by heart. 3 cents for a dozen collars, 2 cents for 12 sleeves. If you work fast, very fast, you might make $9 or $10 in a week. Maybe. If there are no mistakes, no snags, no days you are too sick to come in. $10 to pay for rent, for food, for coal, for shoes. $10 to support not just yourself, but sometimes a mother still grieving a husband lost to disease, or a father who cannot find steady work, or siblings too young to earn. The machine rattles under your hands, fabric slides beneath your fingers, your foot pumps, 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 your heel and toe moving like you're playing an invisible drum. The first hour disappears quickly, then the next. Time in the factory is not measured by a clock on the wall. It is measured in stacks. This pile of cuffs finished? Maybe half an hour. That bundle of belts? Another hour gone. The mountain of fabric waiting to be cut? A full day's work, at least. Around you, the girls keep up a steady murmur of conversation, a soft stream of words threading through the metallic roar.
did you hear about the dance hall on Orchard Street? They say tickets are 15 cents, but the boys will pay. My cousin met a man there who works in an office. An office! Imagine! From the far end of the room, someone starts humming a song. Low and tuneless at first, then gradually gathering melody. It's an old song from the old country, but the words have changed here, adapted to New York, to factory life. You hum along, the tune vibrating in your chest. Once, not long after you started at Triangle, singing like this was not allowed. The owners, the shirtwaist kings, some called them, half in admiration, half in bitter humor, wanted silence. They wanted machines and nothing else. But after the strike, things shifted. Not entirely, not enough, but a little. You remember the strike clearly. The winter of 1909, when thousands of shirtwaist makers, mostly young women like you, poured out of factories and onto the streets, demanding shorter hours, better pay, safer conditions. You didn't strike long. Your mother was frightened that you'd be fired, blacklisted, unable to find work again. Still, you walked a few days, locked arms with Esther and other girls, voices rising in a 1,000-strong chorus. We want our rights, shorter hours, better pay. Men laughed at first. Small girls, big voices. How dangerous could you really be? Then the strike stretched from days into weeks, and the laughter faded. You remember standing on a street corner, handing out leaflets, breath puffing white in the cold. You remember policemen shoving girls into paddy wagons for blocking sidewalks. You remember women in furs, riding in carriages, slowing to watch, some faces disapproving, some thoughtful. Some of those women you later heard joined your cause, gave money, bailed girls out of jail, stood beside them in court. In the end, many factories granted small concessions, a little more pay, a slightly shorter workday, promises, always promises of safer conditions. Triangle had signed a settlement. Wages rose a little, but the doors were still locked during working hours. The fire escapes were still narrow and poorly built. The scraps of fabric on the floor were still rarely swept because time spent cleaning was time not spent sewing. You push the thoughts away. There is no room in your mind right now for angry remembering. There is only the line of stitches you must keep straight, the next pile of cuffs, the next bundle of sleeves. If your mind wanders too far, your fingers will too. A crooked seam means a ruined piece, and a ruined piece means lost pay. So you let the day shrink to the width of your machine. Needle, thread, fabric. Up, down, up, down. The steady, hypnotic clatter. Hours pass. The gas jets overhead flicker with a slightly different rhythm as someone adjusts the line. Outside, the sun climbs higher, though from where you sit, you see only a thin stripe of light on the opposite wall. At mid-morning, there is a short break, not because the owners wish you to rest, but because a delivery of fabric has arrived, and the cutters need a moment to shift tables, to stack new bolts. Mr. Bernstein raises a hand. 5 minutes, he shouts over the noise. No more. You lean back from your machine. Your spine protests, a long ache unfurling between your shoulder blades. Your hands still twitch with the phantom movement of guiding cloth. Esther swivels on her stool, rubbing a cramp out of her wrist. I dreamed last night, she says, that I owned a bank. You snort. A bank? Yes, she smiles, eyes bright in the dim light. A very small bank, only for girls who sew shirtwaists. We come in after work, and instead of counting pennies to pay rent and buy bread, we count dollars and decide whether to travel the world or buy big hats. Lucia leans over, grinning. And my dream, she says, I owned a candy shop. No shirtwaists at all. Only chocolates and sugared almonds and licorice. And if a girl worked all week without missing a day, she could take anything she wanted for free. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the idea wash over you. A world where your labor turns into rest, where your exhaustion earns something sweet, not merely survival. You know it is fantasy. Still, fantasies are small acts of reliance, a way of keeping a piece of yourself yours, not the factory's. Across the room, someone pulls out a small mirror, checking her hair. Another girl quickly threads a needle for a friend whose eyes have grown tired from the tiny work. 5 minutes passed quickly. Mr. Bernstein claps his hands. All right, back to it. The cloth won't sew itself. You bend over your machine again. The day resumes its rhythm. By noon, your stomach is growling loud enough to almost be heard over the machines. A bell rings again, and this time the sound is like a deep exhale moving through the room. Lunch, Esther says, stretching her arms until her shoulders pop. Thank God. You reach under your stool for your tin pail. Inside, wrapped in cloth, is a sandwich your mother made. Yesterday's bread, a smear of tomato, a thin slice of cheese. There is also an apple, small and a little bruised, but still a treasure. You carry your pail to the row of windows. There is no cafeteria, no proper break room. Lunch is eaten wherever there is space, perched on windowsills, leaning against cutting tables, sitting on the floor in small clusters. You slide onto a sill, pressing your back to the cold glass. Washington Square Park stretches below like a painting. On the paths, boys in caps kick at patches of remaining snow. A woman in a dark coat pushes a baby carriage. A dog chases pigeons in wild circles. From up here, you can imagine their lives are softer than yours, though you know very little of what waits inside other people's homes. Esther joins you, carefully unwrapping a piece of black bread and a boiled egg. You know who I saw this morning? She says between bites. Yetta from the 9th floor. She says she's joining the union proper, card and everything. You nod, chewing slowly. The word union carries layers of meaning now. To the owners, it is almost a curse. To some girls, it is hope. To others, it is danger, a symbol that might get them blacklisted if they are seen at the wrong meeting. You swallow and take a sip from your tin cup of coffee, now cold, but still comforting. I think they're right, you say quietly. The union girls. Without them, the doors would still be locked more than they already are. We'd earn even less. Esther looks out the window, eyes narrowed in thought. My father says unions are like matches, useful to start a fire, but if you're not careful, they burn down the whole building. You glance at her sidelong. Maybe some buildings need to burn. Not real ones. The ones in men's heads. The ones where girls never grow old because they work until they die. Esther huffs out a soft laugh. You've been going to too many meetings with those older women. Next you'll be giving speeches on street corners, Rosa the fiery. You wrinkle your nose.
I'm not fiery. I just don't want my back to break before I'm 20. You both fall quiet, watching the park below. From somewhere behind you, a snatch of conversation drifts over. They say the owners have another factory in Newark. There are other fires there? Shh, not so loud. Rumors stick in the air like lint. There have been fires before, of course. Flammable cloth, crowded floors, oily machines. It does not take much. Mostly the fires are small. A bin of scraps ignites, someone smothers it with a coat. Work resumes. Sometimes, though, you hear stories of worse. A fire in a factory uptown where exits were blocked by crates of fabric. Girls scrambling for windows, jumping to the street below, bones broken like dropped dolls. You press your shoulder blades into the glass behind you, feeling the solid presence of the window frame. Surely, you think, if something happened here, you would find your way out, down the stairs, into the elevator, onto the street. You know the doors are kept locked during the day, ostensibly to stop theft, but there must be keys. There must be a plan. Doesn't there have to be a plan? The thought brushes your mind like a moth's wing, soft, unsettling. You tuck it away. There is still half a sandwich in your hands, still another 5 hours of work ahead. You do not have the space just now to anticipate disasters that may never come. Look, says Lucia, joining you, cheeks flushed. The woman with the fancy hat is back. She points with her chin. Down in the park, a woman in a tailored suit and a wide-brimmed hat walks along the path, glancing up at the building. Maybe she's a spy for the owners, Esther says lightly. Or maybe, you say, it's one of those rich ladies who helped us during the strike. Maybe she's watching to make sure they keep their word. The idea is strangely comforting. Somewhere out there, you imagine, are women with money and influence who care that girls like you don't work themselves to death. You take another bite of your sandwich, letting the thought sit with you like an extra layer of warmth. The bell rings again, sharper this time. Lunch is over. You crumple the cloth back into your pail, wipe your fingers on your skirt, and return to your machine.
The afternoon is always harder. In the morning, there is at least the brittle freshness of new day. By 2 or 3 o'clock, the factory feels like a living creature, hot, cramped, breathing heavily. Lint floats in the air, almost invisible, but you feel it in your throat, scratchy and dry. Your eyes burn. You blink, refocus, blink again. The pile of unfinished shirtwaists in front of you seems not to shrink, no matter how quickly your hands move. Around 4, someone at the far end of the room coughs, a deep, rattling sound that doesn't stop. The machines nearest her slow briefly, then resume. Girls get sick all the time. There is no paid sick leave, no doctor's visit, unless a family can scrape together the money. Cough becomes a constant presence in the factory, a metronome, counting off the beat of overworked lungs. You shift on your stool, trying to find a position that hurts less. Your lower back throbs. Your neck is stiff. You wonder, briefly, what it would be like to sit in a proper chair in a quiet office, writing neatly on paper with a fountain pen instead of guiding cloth under an iron needle. You know there are women like that. Secretaries, typists, telephone operators. Women who touch words and cables instead of fabric. But those jobs often require more English than you have, more schooling than you could afford. So you imagine them only for a moment, then let the thought drift away, like steam from a kettle you cannot afford to let boil dry. "Rose up," Mr. Bernstein calls, appearing at your elbow. "You are 12 behind your usual pace. Everything all right?" You straighten immediately. "Yes, sir. I am just tired. I will catch up." He studies you for a moment. "Keep your hands moving," he says finally. "The Wanamaker order cannot be late. The bosses?" He glances towards the distant corner where, behind frosted glass, the owner's office sits. "They will not be pleased." You nod, cheeks hot. As he walks away, Esther leans in slightly. "Don't let them make you feel small," she mutters, eyes still on her work. "You are worth more than 12 shirtwaists an hour." You exhale slowly. "Maybe someday someone will pay us like they believe that." "Maybe someday," she agrees. "For now, you sew." There are still small pockets of brightness, even in the longest days. At one point, near 3 o'clock, Lucia passes your row, carrying a stack of finished pieces to the pressing station. As she moves by, she drops something into your lap without breaking stride. A candy. Hard peppermint, wrapped in crinkly paper. You glance up at her, surprised. She doesn't look back, but you see the edge of a smile tugging at her mouth. Later, during a moment when the machine jams and you must stop to re-thread it, you slip the candy into your mouth. The mint is sharp and sweet, a sudden explosion of flavor in a day dominated by the taste of thread and dust. You let it sit on your tongue, dissolving slowly, and for a small space of time, the world feels less gray. In the next lull, Esther leans closer. "Are you still coming tonight?" she asks. "Tonight?" "The meeting," she prompts. "At the Union Hall on East 11th. The older women are speaking, the ones who led the strike. They say there might be talk of pushing the city again about fire escapes, locked doors." You hesitate. After such a long day, the idea of sitting on a hard chair in a crowded hall, listening to speeches, could sound exhausting. But there is another part of you, the part that remembers marching in the cold with a cardboard sign, that hungers for those gatherings. For a few hours, you are not just a pair of hands at a machine. You are part of something larger, a crowd of girls who refuse to be invisible. "Yes," you say, "I will come, if my mother isn't too angry about me coming home late." "We'll go together," Esther says. "They listen better when girls come in pairs. Also, if we sit near the back, maybe we can lean on each other and pretend we're in big, soft beds instead of chairs." You grin. "Just don't snore. I'd hate for the famous organizers to think we are bored." The thought of the meeting becomes a small anchor in your mind. Just get through the next few hours, you think. Then the next. Then you will be in a hall filled with voices. And maybe, just maybe, someone will say something that makes the future seem less narrow than the path between home and the factory.
By late afternoon, the light outside the windows has changed again. The sun is beginning to sink, its rays hitting the factory at a different angle. Dust motes spin in the beams like tiny, restless stars. Someone opens a window a crack, and a thin blade of cool air slices into the overheated room. You inhale deeply. From up here, the city smells different. Less like garbage and horses, more like stone and sky. There is a faint hint of the river if you breathe in just right. Across the narrow air shaft, you see another building, its windows reflecting fragments of your own face back at you. For a moment, you imagine another girl in that window, in another factory, another city, looking back at you. Maybe she is in Chicago or Philadelphia or somewhere even farther in a country you've never seen. Maybe she, too, sits at a machine, shoulders aching, fingers calloused, eyes tired. You wonder if she also hums old songs to herself to keep from crying. The thought connects you to a web of unseen girls stretched across the city, across the country, across oceans. You are not alone. You can't see them, but you can almost feel them, breathing, working, laughing quietly when the boss isn't looking. The machines roar on.
We're going to slow down a little now. We're not at the fire yet. We're still in the ordinary minutes. The minutes no one remembers in the history books, but which make up most of a life. It is late afternoon, somewhere between 4 and 5. The clock above the cutting tables ticks steadily, though you rarely look at it. You mark time in other ways. The coffee you drank at lunch has long since worn off. The peppermint candy from Lucia has dissolved to nothing. Your foot on the treadle moves more slowly than it did in the morning, your legs heavy. Mr. Bernstein walks down the row, checking the remaining piles of work. "Almost there," he says to no one in particular. "Just finish these last bundles, girls, then you can go." You think of the streets outside, growing dim, of the Union Hall on 11th Street, where chairs will be set up in neat rows, of men and women standing at the front, telling stories of factories that changed after tragedy and factories that did not. Your needle hits a knot in the fabric and snaps. The machine jerks. You curse under your breath, the word in your mother's language. Esther hears and snickers. "Careful," she says. "If the boss hears you talk like that, he'll think you've been spending time with the cutters again." You roll your eyes, but your hands are already moving, loosening the clamp, removing the broken needle stub, reaching into the little box of spares at your elbow. You've done this so many times, you could do it blindfolded. The new needle slides into place. You tighten the screw, test the tension with the edge of your thumbnail. Ready. You guide the fabric back under the presser foot and begin to sew again. In the corner of your eye, a cutter lights a cigarette near a scrap bin, cupping the match with his hand. The flame flares briefly, then softens as he inhales, cheeks hollowing. You barely notice.
Men smoke all the time in the factory, despite the rules. The air is so thick already, one more cloud hardly seems to matter. Another girl at the pressing station complains that the irons are too hot, that steam is burning her fingers. Someone laughs. Nothing in this place is too hot, she jokes, not with the drafts from those windows. 2 floors above, on the 10th floor, the owners are finishing their day. You don't see them usually. You just hear stories about Mr. Blank's temper, about Mr. Harris's worries about thieves, and about the way they walk the factory floor some days, scanning the rows of machines with eyes that count only pieces finished, not girls bent over their work. On the 9th floor, more girls sew, more machines clatter, lives parallel to yours by a few vertical meters. In the stairwell, someone is carrying a box of scraps down toward the 8th floor. All of these small movements, small decisions, small bits of life, layered one on top of another, will soon converge. But right now, you don't know that. Right now, there is only the piece of fabric in front of you, the new needle in your machine, the slightly brighter rectangle of sky in your window. You think about the union meeting, about the possibility of new fire regulations, about maybe asking Esther to stop at the Nickelodeon with you on the way home another night to watch moving pictures and pretend for an hour that you are one of the smartly dressed women on the screen. You don't know that people many years from now will imagine you only in this one building, in this one afternoon. You are more than this moment. You have memories, hopes, half-formed plans. You also have exactly 4 shirtwaists left in your current bundle. You pick up another piece and begin to sew.
You notice it first as a feeling, not a smell. A prickle at the back of your throat, an itch in your nose, as if the dust in the air has suddenly grown sharper. You cough once, lightly, and keep sewing. Your foot pumps the treadle, the needle flashes. The pattern is familiar enough that your hands hardly need your thoughts anymore. Then Esther's machine stops. The sudden silence beside you is startling, like a missing tooth in a row of clattering gears. You glance over. She's looking toward the far end of the room, brows drawn together. "Do you smell that?" she asks. You pause, letting your hands fall still. This time, when you inhale, you notice it clearly. Not the usual scent of hot oil and pressed cloth. Something darker, sharper. The faint, bitter tang of burning. Your eyes follow hers. At first, you see nothing new. The same rows of tables, the same bins of scraps, the same gas jets flickering overhead. A cutter arguing with a foreman about measurements. A girl at the pressing station fanning her face with her hand. And then, almost too small to catch, you see it. A thread of gray rising from one of the scrap bins near the cutting tables. Thin as a strand of hair at first, then thickening, curling, reaching. Someone shouts, "Fire!" The word slices through the factory like a knife. Machines stutter and stop. Chairs scrape.
The constant hum of work shatters into fragments of sound, voices, footsteps, the clatter of dropped scissors. For a heartbeat, everyone just looks. The scrap bin holds trimmings from shirtwaists, gauzy cotton, tissue thin, soaked in weeks of tiny dust, the perfect fuel. Flame licks up from the center, orange and hungry. It moves faster than your mind can. One moment, it is no bigger than the candle's tongue. The next, it has climbed into the piled cloth beside it, racing up like a living thing. "Water!" someone cries. "Get water!" But the nearest bucket is across the room, and by the time a girl reaches for it, the fire has leapt from one table to the next, hopping effortlessly across gaps like it knows the way. For an instant, the scene freezes in your memory. The scrap bin glowing at the edges, the faces of the cutters suddenly pale, the thin, panicked lines around Mr. Bernstein's eyes as he starts running toward the fire, shouting orders that are already lost in the rising roar. Then the air changes, and the moment shatters. Smoke blooms outward, thick and black. Girls cough. Someone screams. A high, keening sound that goes on until another voice shouts at her to hush, to move, to run. And just like that, the room that has always felt too small for so many bodies feels far, far too big, as if you will never reach the door in time.
You don't think in long sentences now. Your thoughts shrink to single words. Door, sister, out. You stand so quickly your stool tips over, clattering to the floor behind you. "Lucia!" you shout, voice raw. For a terrifying second, you don't see her. The smoke is spreading fast, changing the light in the room, turning everything a hazy, distorted gray. Girls are on their feet, some frozen, some moving in sudden jerking bursts. "There!" Esther grabs your sleeve, points. Lucia is near the cutting tables where she's been working. Her eyes are wide, fixed on the growing wall of flame that is now chewing its way along the tables, devouring cloth, paper patterns, anything that will burn. "Lucia!" you call again. "Here, come here." She looks at you, just for a fraction of a second. That tiny connection snaps you both back into motion. "I'm coming!" she yells. She runs, ducking under someone's outstretched arm, skirting around a bin that has just caught fire. Her skirt bobs around her ankles. The red ribbon in her hair flickers in and out of sight. Esther is at your other side now. "The doors, Rosa. We have to get to the doors." Yes, the doors. The ones you walk through every day. The ones that are always, always locked once you're inside. You know there are keys. You've seen foremen use them at closing time, turning the bolts with a metallic clunk. Now you desperately hope those keys are as easy to find as they always seemed. You grab Lucia's hand as she reaches you. Her fingers are shaking. "It's okay," you say, though you don't know if that's true. "We're getting out. Stay close." Around you, the room is a storm. Some girls are running toward the main exit, near the elevators, others toward the Washington Place stairwell door. Some stand rooted, staring at the fire, as if trying to make sense of this new, impossible reality. Smoke curls along the ceiling. You move. Not because you're brave, exactly, but because standing still feels like drowning.
You push toward the stairwell door, your hands out in front of you, like you're trying to swim through bodies. Move, please. Excuse me. Let us through. Your voice dissolves in the noise. Someone shoves you. You stumble, pull Lucia up with you. Esther grips the back of your blouse so tightly it hurts. Ahead, you see the door. It is a plain thing. Metal handle, narrow frame. You've passed it 100 times at the end of a shift. Now it is the most important thing you have ever seen. A crowd is already pressed around it. A knot of girls banging on the panels with fists, with lunch pails, with anything they can find. It's locked, someone shrieks. The door is locked. Find the key. Where is the key? You can't move forward. The crowd crushes in on itself, bodies packed so tightly you can feel other girls' hearts pounding through their ribs. Behind you, the fire roars. You feel heat on the back of your neck, like standing too close to an oven. The fabric hanging from the ceiling begins to smolder at the edges. Back, someone yells from near the front. We're crushing us. We can't open it if you don't move back. But there is nowhere to go. The room is a trap with too many mice. For a terrifying second, you think this is where it ends. Here, at a door you've walked past every day without thinking. Then, from the side, another sound cuts through the chaos. The elevator bell.
You turn your head. Through the haze, you see the elevator doors slide open. The operator, his face white with fear, waves his arms. "This way," he shouts. "Come on, quickly." A wave of movement surges in that direction. It is almost impossible to move as a group in a panicked crowd. Survival instinct shrinks people down to single units, each trying to squeeze through gaps a body and a half too small. You clutch Lucia's hand with one of yours and Esther's sleeve with the other. Together, the three of you are like a small raft tossed on a churning river. You push toward the elevator. The fire is crawling along the ceiling now, racing ahead of itself in long, licking tongues. Flames follow the path of the lint that has settled on everything. Beams, rafters, hanging fabrics. The air is hot, almost too hot to breathe. By the time you reach the elevator, it is already packed. Girls stand shoulder to shoulder, faces gray with ash. One girl's hair is on fire at the ends. Another slaps it with her bare hand until the flame goes out. "There's no more room," the operator cries. "I can take no more." Hands reach out from behind you, clawing toward the closing gate. "Please," someone sobs. "Please, just one more. My sister, she..." The gate slams shut. For a second, you see the operator's eyes through the bars. They are wild, but determined. "I'll come back," he mouths, though his voice is lost in the noise. The elevator groans and begins its descent. You watch it go, feeling a strange mixture of hope and dread. Hope, because every trip it makes means more girls reaching the ground alive. Dread, because you can already sense that the fire is moving faster than any machine. You look around. The crowd at the stairwell door is still struggling,
pounding and pushing. Someone has found a key. Where, you're not sure, but the mass of bodies pressed against the door makes it almost impossible to turn. You make a decision. The stairs, you say. The other stairs, on Green Street. Esther stares at you like you're mad. The Green Street stairs? She repeats. That's all the way across the floor. Yes, you say, but if this door won't open, you glanced at the writhing knot of girls, at the flames creeping closer overhead. We have to try. Lucia nods once, sharply. Okay, she says. You turn, dragging them with you. The Green Street stairwell is on the opposite side of the building. To reach it, you have to cross the factory floor, weaving around tables, machines, and now small islands of fire. Heat beats at you like fists. You keep your head down and move.
You remember this walk for the rest of your life, not because of what you see, but because of what you choose not to let yourself see. You do see things, of course. Your eyes can't help it. A girl you know only as Miriam, clutching a spool of thread like it's a rosary. Two friends trying to carry a third whose leg has buckled. A man beating at a burning tablecloth with his coat, realizing too late that the coat itself has caught fire. But you don't let your gaze linger on any of them. You fix your eyes on the far wall where you know the Green Street door should be, and you walk. Sometimes you run. Sometimes you are forced to slow to a stepping shuffle because of the crush of bodies, but always you move forward. Behind you, somewhere, glass shatters. Whether it is a window breaking from the heat or a girl smashing it open, you don't know. The air is full now of things you don't want to name. Smoke, ash, tiny bits of burning cloth that land on your skin like stinging snow. Don't let go, you whisper to Lucia and Esther. Don't let go of me. I won't, Lucia coughs. We're almost there, Esther rasps. I see it. I see the door. She's right. Through the haze, you glimpse the outline of another door, another hope, another possible way down and out. The crowd is thinner here, for the moment. Word of this route hasn't spread as quickly as panic has consumed the other side of the floor. You reach the door, and for one heart-stopping second, your hand hits cold metal that will not turn. Locked. Of course it is locked. It has always been locked. Your breath snags in your throat. No. 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 Then, behind you, a voice. Move aside! Let me through! You turn. Mr. Bernstein is pushing toward you, face streaked with soot, eyes red from smoke. He shouts, "In the name of God, girls, give me space!" The small crowd near the door parts enough for him to squeeze through. You step back, dragging Lucia and Esther with you. You watch his hands fumble at his pocket, pulling out a key ring, metal glinting in the firelight. His fingers shake. For a horrible instant, one key slips from his grasp and falls to the floor.
He curses, drops to his knees, scrabbles for it as smoke swirls around him like a living thing. Then finally, he finds it. He stands, shoves the key into the lock. The mechanism resists. He turns it harder. There is a heavy, blessed click. "Go!" he roars, throwing the door open. "Down, quickly!" You don't need to be told twice. You plunge into the stairwell.
The stairwell is narrow, enclosed in stone. Smoke pours into it, chasing you downward. Girls jostle and trip, hands skimming the rough wall, feet thudding on steps. You grab the railing, fingers slipping on the soot. "Don't run too fast," you gasp to Lucia. "You'll fall." "I'd rather fall than burn," someone behind you says, a wild edge in her voice. You descend. 9th floor. You glimpse an open door. More flames. More smoke. Girls there are already struggling into the stairwell from their side, voices blending with yours in a desperate chorus. "Keep moving," someone shouts from below. "Don't stop." You pass the 8th floor, again, this time from inside the stairwell. The heat from your own workroom blasts through the open door like an oven. For a split second, you see the machine where you were sitting not 10 minutes ago. Now it is a skeleton, already darkening. You look away. Down. 7th floor. 6th. Your legs burn. Your lungs ache. Each breath feels like inhaling ground glass. Somewhere below, someone has fallen. You hear the cry, the thud, the momentary pileup. Then, gradually, the movement resumes. Girls stepping over, around, because if they stop, you don't let yourself finish that thought. "Almost there," Esther wheezes. "We must be. It feels like we've been running forever." It hasn't been forever, of course. Later, people will say the fire consumed the building in minutes, not hours. But in this moment, time stretches and snaps like scorched thread. Finally, you see it. The street-level door, a rectangle of gray light streaked with smoke at the bottom of the stairwell. Girls are pushing through it, spilling out onto the sidewalk. You throw yourself toward it with the last of your strength. The cool air outside hits your face like a slap. You stumble onto the pavement, bent double, gasping, coughing so hard your whole body shakes. Lucia collapses beside you, hands on her knees. Esther leans against the wall, eyes squeezed shut, tears cutting clean lines through the soot on her cheeks. You are out. You are out. The realization comes in waves. You can feel the solid sidewalk beneath your feet, the chill of the late afternoon air on your skin, the sound of horse hooves and wagon wheels and human voices, not in panic, but in startled confusion. For a few precious seconds, all you can do is breathe. Then you look up. From down here, the Ash building looks different. You've seen it from the outside every day, of course, but never like this.
Flames lick out of the 8th floor windows, bright against the darkening sky. Smoke billows upward in thick black columns, smearing the outline of the building. Paper and cloth flutter from windows like burning birds. People on the street have stopped, heads tilted back. Some point, some shout. On Washington Place, directly beneath the factory windows, a few men are dragging out life nets. Those big, round canvas circles held taut between rescuers, meant to catch people who jump. But the nets are small, and the building is tall, and everything is happening so quickly. From where you stand, pressed against the opposite wall, you see a girl appear at a window on the 9th floor. Her hair is loose, wild around her face. Flames dance behind her. For a terrible moment, you think she is waving. Then you realize she is on fire. She doesn't scream. Maybe her voice is lost in the roar, or maybe she has gone beyond screaming. She steps onto the narrow ledge. People below shout, "Don't jump! Stay where you are! Help is coming!" But you know instinctively that help is not coming fast enough. From somewhere down the street, you hear the clang of fire engines, the shrill cry of whistles. Firefighters are racing toward you, but they are fighting time as much as flame. The girl hesitates for a heartbeat. Then she jumps. You will always remember the way she falls. Not like in the stories, arms flailing. She falls almost gracefully, like she is diving into water. The crowd below surges toward the life net, trying to position it under her. For a second, it looks as though they might succeed. Then she hits. The sound is terrible. The net tears like cheap fabric. People stagger backward. Someone near you starts sobbing uncontrollably. You grab Lucia's hand and squeeze it until your knuckles ache. "Don't look," you whisper. "Don't look anymore." But you both do. You can't help it. More figures appear at the windows. Some are trying to climb down improvised ropes made of fabric and belts knotted together. The ropes catch fire from the heat below, snapping like burning fiddle strings. Some girls hang from the sills as long as they can, fingers white, legs kicking in empty air. When they finally let go, it is not from choice. The crowd below surges this way and that, trying to predict where each body will fall. The life nets are too few, too weak. The ladders on the fire engines only reach as high as the 6th floor. You watch firefighters aim their streams of water at flames that are already far beyond control. The water arches gracefully, almost beautifully, before hitting the building and turning to steam. You taste fear and ash and something like metal on your tongue. Esther makes a small, choked sound. You glance at her. Her eyes are fixed on a group of windows you know belong to the 9th floor, directly above where you used to sit. "Yetta," she whispers. "Oh God, Yetta is there." You know which Yetta she means. The girl with the quick laugh and the quicker needle, who always had a story, always had a scrap of advice, always knew how to make a joke out of the worst news. You do not see her face in any of the windows, but you know that doesn't mean she isn't there. There were other stairs, you say, words tumbling out. Maybe she took the elevator. Maybe she got out the other side. Maybe she's already... You can't finish the sentence. Already what? Already safe? Already lying on the street just beyond where the crowd hides your view? Lucia swallows hard. We can't know yet, she says softly. We can't know. She's right. You stand there, 3 girls among hundreds, as the building that held your everyday life becomes a towering torch. You never hear an official time for how long the fire lasts. Maybe 20 minutes, maybe half an hour. It feels like a lifetime and like no time at all. Gradually, the flames inside the building begin to die down. Smoke still pours from the windows, but the fierce orange glow softens to a dull red, then to darkness. The fire has eaten everything it can reach. The firefighters keep working, dousing hot spots, shouting to each other over the hiss of steam. Police begin to push the crowd back, trying to make space for ambulances, for wagons to carry the injured, for other wagons to carry... You stop that thought before it finishes. Your legs are trembling. Come, Esther says hoarsely. We should find the others. See who got out. You nod. You take one last look at the building that held your everyday life. The windows where you once watched the park below are now empty eye sockets. Ash drifts down like black snow. Then you turn away.
You don't go home right away. None of you do. Instead, you gather with other girls, those who escaped from the 8th, the 9th, the 10th floor, in clusters along the streets and in nearby buildings that open their doors to you. Someone ushers you into a settlement house a few blocks away. Inside, the air is warm and smells of soap and stew. Volunteers move between groups of girls with blankets and cups of water, their faces pale with shock. Sit, a woman says, guiding you to a bench. Are you hurt? Let me see. You shake your head numbly. Your hands are scraped, your throat burns, your hair smells like smoke. But compared to what you've seen, you feel uninjured, almost guilty in your intactness. Lucia sits beside you, staring at her hands. Esther is on your other side, shoulders hunched. Around you, girls speak in bursts. I couldn't find my sister. The door, that cursed door, it would not open. The elevator, it came back, but there were too many. Rivka pushed me ahead of her. She said, Go, I'm right behind you. And then, some sentences never finish. Others tumble over one another, forming a patchwork of memory and horror. You catch bits of different languages, all saying the same things. Where is she? Did you see her? Did she get out? A man with ink-stained fingers, a notebook in his hand, moves among the groups, asking questions gently. Your name? Which floor? Did you see what started the fire? Later, you learn he is a reporter. Tonight,
He feels more like a confessor. You answer his questions in a dull monotone. Rosa Esposito. 8th floor. I saw a scrap bin near the cutting tables. I saw smoke first, then flame. It moved very fast, faster than I thought possible. He nods, scribbling. His eyes are kind, but also sharp. He is collecting your words, turning them into something that will be printed and read by people who have never set foot inside a factory. You wonder if they will understand any of it. Snow begins to fall outside, soft and slow. Through the settlement house window, you watch flakes drift past the street lamp, melting as soon as they touch the still warm pavement. Hours pass. Girls are claimed by relatives, by friends, by strangers who give them places to sleep for the night. Others sit alone, waiting for someone who does not come. You think of your mother. You know, with a sinking feeling, that she has already heard there was a fire at Triangle, that she has imagined the worst, that every moment you are not home is torture. I have to go, you say finally, hoarse. She'll think. You don't need to finish. Esther squeezes your hand. I'll walk with you, she says. I'll come too, Lucia adds. The three of you stand, coats smelling strongly of smoke, and step back out into the night.
The streets between the settlement house and your tenement are both familiar and strange. You've walked them 100 times after work, usually tired but relieved, chatting with Lucia about small things. Who said what, which foreman is the worst, what you'd do if you suddenly had a spare dollar. Tonight, the city feels off balance. There are more people in the streets than usual. Groups huddle on corners, talking in low, urgent voices. Newspapers are already out with extra editions, headlines hastily set. Factory fire, many dead. You see your building from half a block away. There is a figure standing in the doorway, peering up the street. Your mother. Even from this distance, you recognize the set of her shoulders. You break into a run. "Ma!" you shout. Her head snaps toward you. For a terrifying second, she doesn't move, as if she doesn't trust her eyes. Then she is running too, skirts hitched, April strings trailing behind her. She meets you in the middle of the street, throws her arms around you so hard you can barely breathe. "Rosa!" she sobs into your hair. "Madonna, Rosa, I thought. I'm okay. I'm here. She pulls back just enough to grab Lucia, dragging her into the embrace. "Lucia, you too. Both of you." She laughs and cries at the same time, an unsteady, disbelieving sound. "Thanks be to God. Thanks be to God." Behind her, neighbors spill into the hallway, faces anxious, curious, relieved as they see you. Someone crosses herself, someone murmurs a prayer of thanks in Yiddish. Your mother cups your city face in her hands, scanning you for injuries. "No burns? No broken bones? You can breathe?" "I can breathe, though each inhale still scratches." "Come inside." Her voice trembles. "Come, sit, tell me everything." You think of all the stories you could tell, how the flames moved, how the doors held, how the girls junked, how the nets tore.
Instead, you nod. Okay, I whisper. Later. I'll tell you later. She shepherds you up the stairs like she used to when you were small, one hand on your shoulder, the other on Lucia's. Esther hesitates at the bottom. Your mother looks back. Esther, you too. Come. Your mother will want to know you are safe. You can send a boy with a message, but first you eat. For a second, Esther's composure cracks. Her eyes fill with tears. Thank you, she whispers. Inside your apartment, everything is as you left it that morning. The chairs, the little table, the picture of a saint on the wall, the pot on the stove. The normality is almost unbearable. You sit. Your mother presses a cup of tea into your hands. Your fingers, still trembling, curl around the warm ceramic like it's a lifeline. She asks again what happened. This time, you try to answer. The words come out halting, uneven, in two languages at once. Smoke, fire, locked doors, running, screaming, jumping. You see the color drain from her face. At one point, you say Yetta's name. Your mother closes her eyes. She remembers her, she says softly. She came for soup one night when her wages were short. A good girl. A brave girl. You nod. Your throat is too tight for more. You don't sleep much that night. When you do drift off, you dream of windows. Some open, some shut. Some with girls in them, some empty. You dream your hands are on a sill and the stone is too hot to hold, and every time you think you've decided whether to jump or stay, the dream resets, and you're back at the machine, 4 shirtwaists left.
In the days that follow, the city changes. The fire is everywhere. In newspapers, on street corners, in church sermons, in quiet gossip between neighbors leaning over stair railings. Numbers shift as the full extent of the loss becomes known, as names are slowly matched to those who didn't come home. One day, the rumor is 100 gone. Another, it's 150. The final count, when it comes, settles around 146. Most of them are girls like you. Italian, Jewish, Russian, Irish. 16, 18, 20, maybe 25 years old at most. Some are older women who worked beside you, deft fingers stitching even as their backs bent with years of labor. Some are men, cutters, pressers, foremen, who tried to guide others to safety toward the stairs, the windows, the elevator. Too many of them you knew. Yetta, Rivka, Margaret, Chava, names that now appear in print as if a few letters on a page could hold who they really were. Funerals fill the week. Some are private, held in small synagogues, in churches, in rented halls. Some families never receive anyone to bury and hold services over empty coffins, praying over spaces where a person should have been. Then there is the mass funeral. You go, not because you feel ready exactly, but because staying home feels impossible. The procession stretches for blocks. Thousands of people march through drizzling rain, their dark coats streaked with water, their faces solemn and set. Banners flap in the damp wind. We mourn our departed souls. We demand protection for the living.
146 girls. Who is responsible? Union leaders speak. Some of them you recognized from the strike, the women you once admired from a distance, their voices ringing out over crowds of shivering girls. Now their voices are roughened by grief and sharpened by anger. They died because the doors were locked. They died because fire escapes were twisted like old wire, because profit weighed more than safety. This was not an unfortunate accident. This was the result of neglect. People murmur, nod, wipe their eyes. You stand beside Esther and Lucia, your hands intertwined with theirs. Rain soaks your hair, trickles down your neck. You don't care. In the days that follow, there are meetings, investigations.
The owners, Blank and Harris, are arrested. They appear in court, their suits neat, their faces careful and composed. You read about it in the papers, your hands tightening around the newsprint. Some say they look remorseful. Others say they look merely inconvenienced. You are not in the courtroom when they speak, but you hear it secondhand. They say they did not know the doors were locked. They say they did everything they could. They say they too are victims of this tragedy. It is strange hearing them described as victims. You think of the girls at the windows, of Yetta, of the way the doors resisted your hands until a man with a key arrived. You think of all the times someone had asked for better fire protection, more exits, safer conditions, and had been told it was too expensive, too difficult, too unnecessary. The trial ends months later with a verdict that feels, to many, like a second blow. The owners are acquitted of manslaughter. The jury says there isn't enough proof that they knew the doors were locked. In another proceeding, they are fined a small amount for having doors locked in violation of an existing law. So small, it feels, to you, like only a few coins set against each life disrupted or lost. You read the number in the paper, and your stomach turns. Some people shrug, saying that justice is never perfect, that factory work is dangerous by nature, that terrible things simply happen. Others refuse to shrug. They organize. They write. They march. They meet with politicians. The fire, they say, must mean something. It cannot simply be a story of smoke and panic and young women who never came home. It must change something. Slowly, it does.
You don't see the laws being written. You never step into the rooms where men, mostly men, sit around tables and decide which regulations to propose, which to weaken, which to pass. But you feel the ripple effects. New state investigators tour factories. They measure stairwells. They inspect fire escapes. They check whether doors are locked during working hours. New rules are drafted. Buildings above a certain size must have sprinklers. Doors must open outward, not inward, and must remain unlocked when workers are inside.
fire drills become mandatory in some workplaces. There are arguments, of course. Factory owners complain about costs. They insist that too many rules will drive business away, that they can't be responsible for every possible danger. Union leaders counter that the cost of safety is nothing compared to the cost of 146 funerals. New committees are formed. One of them is led by a woman who had once watched your picket line from the comfort of her carriage. Now she spends her days visiting tenements, talking to girls like you, pushing legislation that will make workplaces safer. You hear her name in conversations, Frances Perkins. You do not meet her, but you carry a quiet gratitude for her in your heart, the way you do for firefighters who arrived too late to save everyone, but still climbed ladders into smoke because not trying was unthinkable. Change is slow. Some factories comply quickly, installing new exits, holding drills, actually listening to workers' concerns for the first time. Others drag their feet, delay, cheat. It takes years for many of the reforms to become widespread reality, but a line has been drawn in the city's memory. Before Triangle, after Triangle. You were there at the line. You carry that with you, always.
You do not go back to the Ash Building, of course. It reopens eventually under another name with other tenants, but by then you have found work elsewhere. For a time, you cannot even look at a sewing machine without feeling your heart hammer. The sound of a needle striking fabric makes your throat close. Your mother is patient. With time, she says, you will decide what you can and cannot do. For a few weeks, you help a neighbor with laundry, scrubbing clothes at the communal sinks, your hands red and raw from soap and cold water. The work is heavy, but the open yard feels safer than a closed room. Gradually, though, as the terror softens into a more manageable ache, you find yourself drawn back to the thing your hands know best, sewing. Not in a big factory, at first. You take in piecework at home, hemming, mending, stitching blouses for a small shop. You sit by the window, needle and thread in hand, light falling across your work. When you close your eyes, you can still see the 8th floor, the rows of machines, the place where your stool used to sit. But you also see other things now. Lucia, laughing as she practices her English. Esther, standing on a makeshift platform at a union meeting, telling her story to a crowd, her voice shaking at first, then growing steadier as she speaks. Your own hands, deft and sure, creating seams that hold. You attend more meetings. Not every week, not always, but enough. Sometimes you sit in the back, letting others' voices wash over you. Sometimes you help hand out pamphlets. Sometimes you speak quietly to younger girls just starting work, telling them that if something feels wrong, a locked door, a blocked exit,
they do not have to carry that fear alone. You are not just one pair of hands. There are many of us. We can speak together. Lucia, who is still restless and impatient, eventually finds a different path. She trains as a telephone operator, sitting at a switchboard in a new building uptown. The hours are long, but there are clean floors, polished walls, supervisors who are strict, but not cruel. When she describes her job, you listen with a mixture of pride and wistfulness. Your lives branch. Esther remains in the garment industry. She becomes a respected voice in the union, her words appearing in pamphlets and speeches. Sometimes you see her name in the newspaper under a small interview talking about the fire and the girls we lost. Every time you feel a pang. The memories are heavy, but sharing them makes them slightly less so. Years pass. The city changes around you. New buildings rise, old ones are torn down. Hemlines climb, then fall. Hats grow wider, then smaller. The shirtwaist, once the height of fashion, becomes ordinary, then old-fashioned. But there are always young women, always newcomers to the city, always families trying to find their footing on crowded streets. You marry, eventually. Not an artist or a banker or a man with a house on Fifth Avenue. A printer's assistant, kind-eyed, with ink always smudged on his fingers. He doesn't mind that your English is still touched by your mother tongue, and you don't mind that his shirts sometimes smell of metal and paper. You have children, a daughter, then a son. When your daughter is old enough to understand, you tell her your story. Not all at once, in pieces. You tell her about the boat ride, the tenement, the smell of early morning bread. You tell her about the factory, the long rows of machines, the girls who sang softly to keep themselves awake, the jokes whispered between stitches. Eventually, you tell her about the fire. She listens, eyes wide, fingers twisting in her lap. She asks, "Were you afraid?" You say simply, "Yes, I was very afraid." "Did you think you would die?" You consider. In that stairwell, with smoke behind me and so many feet in front, there was a moment when I thought that might be how it ends. But I kept walking. We all kept walking. She is quiet for a moment. She asks, "Why did they lock the doors?" You take a deep breath. You explain. They said it was to stop girls from stealing thread or cloth, to make sure we didn't leave before the day was done. They cared more about that than about our safety. "That's stupid," she says, frowning. "It was worse than stupid," you say gently. "It was cruel, and it was normal. That's the terrible thing. It was normal. For them." You brush a strand of hair from her face. You say, "But because it happened, because people saw, because they could not ignore 146 funerals, the laws changed. Workplaces became safer. Not perfect, never perfect, but better." She looks at your hands, tracing the faint scars on your knuckles. She says softly, "Because of you? Because of the girls?" You shake your head. You say, "Because of all of us. Those who lived, those who didn't, those who marched, those who wrote, those who listened." Change is rarely one person. It's a crowd, all moving in the same direction, even if they never meet. She nods slowly, absorbing this. You feel a small, quiet satisfaction. Your story will not be in textbooks, most likely. Your name will not be in the brief paragraphs about the Triangle Shirtwaist Fire that students skim before a test. But here, in this small kitchen, sitting across from your daughter, you are shaping memory. That matters.
Many years after the fire, when gray has begun to streak your hair, when your children are nearly grown, you find yourself walking near Washington Square. You are there on an errand, more or less. A friend of a friend needs help with some mending, and you have agreed to go. You turn a corner, lost in thought, and suddenly, there it is, the Ash Building. You stop. You have avoided this place mostly over the years, not intentionally, more out of an unspoken agreement with yourself to take other routes, visit other parks, focus your life around different landmarks. Seeing it now is like encountering someone you once knew intimately and haven't spoken to in years. The building looks much the same. 10 stories of brick and stone, windows reflecting the sky, a plaque by the door that you don't remember from before. You cross the street slowly. People pass around you, students with books, office workers, a woman pushing a stroller. The city has grown up and around this place while you were busy living your life. You stand before the plaque and read. It mentions the date, March 25th, 1911, the number of workers who died, 146, the changes that followed, fire safety laws, labor reforms, union growth. It does not mention Yetta by name, or Rivka, or Miriam, or you. But as you stand there, you feel all of them around you, in the air and the stone and the quiet hum of the city. You close your eyes. For a moment, you hear the machines again, distant and faint, the murmur of girls' voices, the scrape of chairs, someone humming a song from the old country. You inhale. This time, the air is clear. You exhale slowly. Peace, you whisper, not sure whether you're speaking to the building, to the girls, to your younger self afraid in the stairwell, maybe to all of them. You touch the plaque gently, your fingers resting on the cold metal. Then you turn and walk away. As we leave your story tonight, I want to do it softly. We know how history often tells this tale, as numbers, as laws passed, as dramatic images of girls at windows and ladders too short. All of that is true and important, but it's not the whole story. Before the fire, you were a girl who liked peppermint candy and joking with your sister. You had opinions about which foreman was the worst and a secret admiration for a hat you saw in a shop window. You weren't born to be a symbol. You were born to live a life, ordinary in many ways, extraordinary in the stubbornness it took to keep walking, keep working, keep hoping. When a catastrophe happens, it can feel like everything that came before it was leading to that moment. But most of your days were made of small things. Bread and coffee at a crowded table, the shared warmth of a narrow bed, the feel of a familiar street under your feet,
the way sunlight looked on someone's face when they laughed. Those small things matter. They are what make a life, even when history remembers only the big tragedies or the big victories. Tonight, as you lie in your own bed, maybe far from New York, far from 1911, I want you to know that your small moments matter too. The warm cup in your hands, the softness of your pillow, the quiet hum of something in the next room, the fact that you made it through another day. Somewhere, in the way cities are safer now, in the way we expect doors to open when we push them, in the way fire alarms sit quietly on ceilings, the echo of those girls' lives and deaths is still present. They are part of why so many of us can work in places with visible exits, with drills, with rules that assume our lives are worth protecting. You waking up for school or work or something else tomorrow are part of their legacy. As your eyes grow heavy, you can imagine gently stepping out of Rosa's shoes, leaving the factory floor, leaving the staircase, leaving the ache in your lungs. You are back in your own body now, your own room, your own worries, which are real but different, your own future, which is still unwritten. Take a slow breath in and a slower breath out. You can let the clatter of sewing machines fade into the distance. If you hear echoes of them in your dreams, maybe they'll be gentler now, rhythmic, steady, like rain on a roof, like a train far away. You have walked down the stone stairs. You have stepped back onto the street. You have grown older, told your story, seen laws change. For tonight, there is nothing left you need to do. You are safe. You are warm. You are allowed to rest. Let your shoulders soften. Let your jaw loosen. Let your thoughts drift like tiny bits of lint in a high, bright window. Somewhere a very long time ago, a girl closes her eyes and finally sleeps without dreams of fire. You can join her there, in a place beyond heat and fear, where the only sound is a gentle voice telling you that you've done enough for today. Good night, friend. Sleep well.